If there's anything that is going to leave a sour taste in the mouth of a buyer when they move into a new property, it's sellers who leave things that were supposed to be fixed up on a contract undone. Hi, I'm Peter Fletcher. I'm a buyer's agent, I'm a settlement agent, and I'm the managing director of Resi, where we give buyers the support, strategies, and information they need to make winning property moves. So, how do buyers make sure that their interests are protected in a contract? A pre-settlement inspection is an inspection that arises out of Clause 5 of the Joint Form of General Conditions. Now, before I go into this too far, I'm going to say I'm not a lawyer. I work with the Joint Form of General Conditions and the contract for the sale of land just about every day of the week, so I'm pretty familiar with it, but this is general advice, so please just keep that in mind. So back to Clause 5. So Clause 5 gives the buyer the right to do an inspection prior to settlement. Some buyers think, well, they can just wander through the property, measure up, take photos, do all these sorts of things. Actually, no. The purpose of the pre-settlement inspection is to do one thing and one thing only, and that is to ensure the seller has complied with their obligations under the contract. So how do these obligations arise? Well, first thing is working order clauses. Here in WA, a contract will typically say something like, the seller warrants that all gas, electrical and plumbing appliances shall be in working order at settlement. And as a result of that clause, the seller now has an obligation to have these things in working order. They have to be done. And the seller and the buyer can now inspect the property to ensure that all gas, electrical and plumbing appliances, or whatever it says in that clause, is in working order. So during the inspection, they can go through, turn on the oven, the exhaust fan, the fan in the toilet, flush the toilet, all those sorts of things to ensure that all gas, electrical and plumbing appliances, pool filtration equipment, that sort of thing that are contemplated in that clause is in working order. Sometimes a contract will contain other clauses that create an obligation on the part of the seller. For example, the seller might agree to paint the bedroom walls, or they might agree to repair some damage to the laundry door. So the buyer was absolutely within their rights to check those things to make sure they're done. There's a couple of other kind of hidden obligations a seller has that arise out of Clause 6 of the Joint Form of General Conditions, and that is the seller is required to remove rubbish and personal chattels. So they can't just leave, car bodies and tyres and stuff in the backyard when they leave the property. So you've got a right, the buyer has a right to go through and check these things and make sure that they're all done. Now, I've got to say that in the case of an owner-occupied property, the seller has the right to remain in the property until midday of the day after settlement. So you can do your pre-settlement inspection. The seller might have rubbish everywhere. So now you're going to ask the question, is it likely that the seller is going to remove that rubbish? Now that's a whole nother question, a whole different negotiation to have. It's important that you as the buyer can go through and check that the seller is complied with that part of their obligations. One of the other obligations a seller has is to provide all access devices to the property. This is also a clause in the Joint Form of General Conditions. So it would be, at least I believe, in your rights as a buyer to request those access devices and make sure that you can, the keys to the front door, the back sliding door, all work. Now there's a whole question mark about keys to the windows on a property. Technically they don't provide you access to the property, so the owner doesn't actually have to hand over keys to the windows. In most cases they do, but you certainly would have the right to ask to see the keys for the front and back door and any other doors that give you access to the property. The final thing that you can check at a pre-settlement inspection is the seller's obligations under Clause 9F of the Joint Form of General Conditions, and that is that they promise that the property will be in the same condition as it was immediately prior to you entering into the contract. So things like the condition of the walls, the condition of the gardens, just generally, is the property in the same condition? A seller can't just present this pristine property and have you buy it and then 6 weeks later you are taking over some sort of renovation project as a result of the damage they did between the day of contract and settlement. So they're the things that you can check in a pre-settlement inspection. The question is, well, what happens if you find things that the seller hasn't fixed up, that hasn't attended to? What happens next? Well, Clause 5 of the Joint Form of General Conditions gives you the right for an additional inspection and to ensure that, again, the seller has made those repairs and complied with their obligations under the contract. Pre-settlement inspections, they can get pretty tricky. The final thing I'll say about pre-settlement inspections is who can attend a pre-settlement inspection? Well, the buyer can bring 2 other people. What that means is that if the buyer is a couple, they can bring 2 other people with them. So they could bring, let's say, mum and dad. So that's 2 people. And so that would be 4 people at the inspection. You can't have a cast of thousands unless the seller agrees to extra people there. You can't have cast of thousands. So you can't bring your plumber friend, the electrician, your architect, or a whole heap of other people. No, that's not okay. You can only bring 2 other people. And finally, when can you do the pre-settlement inspection? Pre-settlement inspection can be done within 5 working days of settlement. And the closer to settlement within reason that's done, the better, because it gives the seller more time to comply with their obligations. But you also need to allow enough time so that if there is things that are identified that aren't working, you have time to get them fixed. So somewhere between 2 and 5 days out from settlement would be perfect. So I hope that's been of use. I know that it causes lots and lots of arguments during the settlement process. Real estate agents pull their hair out about it. Buyers get upset about it. Sellers get annoyed about it. But if it's done properly, if it's done professionally, it usually goes well. Hope this has been of help. So if you'd like to know more, send us a DM or add a comment below and I'll be sure to answer. Look forward to talking to you.